$1 trillion. That is the number that should scare you. It is not just a statistic on a government spreadsheet. It is the receipt for the wealth that has just left your country. China has reported a trade surplus of $1 trillion. This is a record. It is a number so large, it is almost impossible to comprehend. But while the headlines talk about trade wars and tariffs, you are feeling something very different at your kitchen table. You go to the grocery store, you look at the price of eggs, you look at the price of meat, you look at your insurance bill, and you feel a pit in your stomach. They tell you the economy is booming. They point to the GDP. They point to the stock market. They tell you that inflation is coming down. But your bank account tells a different story. You are not crazy. You are not imagining this pain. If you feel like you are working harder than ever, but getting poorer every single day, it is because you are. We are living through a phenomenon that historians might one day call the silent depression. It is silent because the unemployment lines are not visible on the street like they were in the 1930 seconds. But inside American homes, the panic is just as real. Consumer sentiment has plunged 30%. It is hovering near an all-time low. American perceptions of the economy right now are statistically comparable to the Great Depression. Think about that for a second. We have smartphones. We have AI. We have modern medicine. Yet, the average American feels as financially insecure as their grandparents did when the banks collapsed in 1929. Why is there such a massive disconnect? Why do the politicians in Washington tell you that affordability is just a state of mind? Or worse, that your struggle is a hoax? In this video, I am going to walk you through the mechanics of this silent depression. I am going to show you exactly how that $1 trillion deficit connects directly to the empty seat at your dinner table. And I am going to expose the uncomfortable truth about tariffs that no one in power wants to admit. Because while they fight their trade wars, you are the one paying the war reparations. The macro reality. Let's start with the elephant in the room, that $1 trillion figure. For years, we have been told that tariffs would fix the trade imbalance. We were promised that if we taxed Chinese goods, production would come home, jobs would return, and America would win. We were told that China would pay the tariffs. You have heard the sound bites. Billions of dollars pouring into the treasury. But let's look at the reality of 2025. If the trade war is working, why is China's surplus hitting a historic record? The answer lies in a massive shell game, a global loop of logistics that is designed to fool the regulators but ultimately punish the consumer. When the United States puts a tariff on goods from China, those factories do not just shut down, they adapt. They ship their components to Vietnam, to Mexico, to Thailand. They slap a new label on the box, and then they ship it to the United States. Technically, it is no longer a direct Chinese import, but realistically, it is the same product. The only difference is the cost. Now, that product has to travel further. It has to go through more hands. It has to be repackaged. And every single step of that journey adds a cost. Who pays that cost? Does the Chinese manufacturer pay it? No, they have already been paid. Does the importer pay it? Maybe initially, but the importer is a business. And businesses do not absorb costs if they want to survive. They pass it on. They pass it on to the retailer, and the retailer passes it on to you. So when you see that $1 trillion surplus, understand what it really means. It means that despite all the tough talk, despite all the executive orders, we are still buying everything from abroad. We are just paying a premium for the privilege of pretending we are not. This is a massive transfer of wealth. It is money leaving your community, leaving your local economy, and flowing overseas. And this is happening at a time when American corporations are posting record profits. Look at the tech sector. Look at companies like Nvidia. They are thriving. Their stock prices are soaring because of the AI boom. But does that wealth trickle down to you? Or does it stay locked in the stock market portfolios of the top 1%? This is the definition of the disconnect. The GDP goes up because the corporations are charging you more, not because you are earning more. The mechanism of pain. To understand why this is happening right now, we need to listen to the people on the ground, not the politicians in suits, but the people who actually move the boxes. Gene Soroka is the executive director of the Port of Los Angeles, the busiest port in the Western Hemisphere. If you want to know the health of the American economy, you do not ask the Federal Reserve. You ask the guy who watches the containers come off the ships, and what he is seeing is a warning signal for all of us. Recently, there has been a narrative that exports are booming. Specifically, we have heard claims that American soybeans are flying out of the country to China, that the trade deal is working, that farmers are winning. But when asked if soybeans are being exported as we speak, Gene Soroka gave a blunt answer. He said no. He said, "We are not there yet." He explained that you do not just flip a switch. These are contracts signed months in advance, 6 months, 12 months. The logistics of global trade are slow, they are heavy, and they do not respond to political speeches. So why does this matter to you? Because it exposes the lag time of economic pain. Over the last 18 months, companies saw the tariffs coming. They knew that taxes were going to go up. So what did they do? They stockpiled. They imported as much as they possibly could before the new rates kicked in. Warehouses across America are full to the brim. They bought inventory at the old prices. And for a while, that shielded you from the worst of it. But now, that inventory is running out. The cheap goods are gone. And the new goods coming in are carrying the full weight of the tariffs. Gene Soroka mentioned that small and medium-sized businesses are at a breaking point. These are not the Walmarts or the Amazons of the world. These are the local suppliers, the family-owned distributors. They held on as long as they could. They tried not to raise prices because they were afraid of losing customers, but they can no longer absorb the blow. They have to raise prices, or they have to close their doors. This is the wave that is about to crash onto the American consumer. We have seen coffee up 9%, furniture up 12%, clothing and shoes up 10%. These are not luxuries. These are essentials, and this is why the inflation numbers you see on the news feel like a lie, because they measure a basket of goods that often excludes the volatile reality of your daily life. They strip out food and energy to give you the core inflation number. But you cannot strip out food and energy from your life. You have to eat. You have to drive to work. And when the price of those things goes up because of trade wars and supply chain distortions, it acts as a hidden tax, a tax that was never voted on by Congress, a tax that you never agreed to pay, but a tax that is collected every single time you swipe your credit card. The silent depression. This brings us back to the concept of the silent depression. Why do we call it silent? Because if you look at the surface, everything looks noisy and bright. Restaurants are open, airports are crowded, people are still spending money, but look closer at how they are spending it. Credit card debt has smashed through the $1 trillion mark. Delinquency rates on auto loans are rising. People are not spending money because they have it. They are spending money because they are borrowing it against a future they hope will be better. But hope is not a strategy. In 1929, the Depression was visible. You saw the soup lines. You saw the Dust Bowl. You saw men standing on street corners with signs asking for work. In 2025, the Depression is invisible. It happens late at night when you are staring at your banking app. It happens when you quietly put a grocery item back on the shelf because it is just too expensive this week. It happens when you tell your kids that you cannot go on vacation this year. It is a depression of dignity. It is a depression of purchasing power. And it is being fueled by a political class that refuses to acknowledge it. We have heard leaders dismiss the affordability crisis. We have heard them call it a hoax or a partisan talking point. This is gaslighting on a national scale. To tell a family that is struggling to put food on the table that their struggle is not real is an insult. It creates a deep cynicism, a feeling that the system is rigged against the common man. And the data supports that feeling. When consumer sentiment drops this low, it is a leading indicator. It means that people have lost faith in the future. They do not believe that next year will be better. They do not believe the promises of prosperity. They see the writing on the wall. They see a government that is more interested in protecting the stock prices of defense contractors and tech giants than in protecting the purchasing power of the dollar in your pocket. Farmers are feeling this acutely. They were promised new markets. They were promised aid packages. But aid packages are just band-aids. They are tax dollars recycled back to cover the wounds of policy failures. Real prosperity comes from trade, from selling what you grow to people who want to buy it. When you disrupt that with tariffs, you break relationships that took decades to build. And once those relationships are broken, buyers in Brazil or Argentina step in to fill the void, and the American farmer is left holding the bag. The tragedy of the silent depression is that it is a slow bleed. It does not happen overnight. It is the gradual erosion of the middle-class standard of living. It is the realization that you are working harder than your parents did, but you have less to show for it. It is the fear that your children will be the first generation in American history to be worse off than the one that came before. Conclusion and preparation. So, where do we go from here? The first step is acknowledging the reality. Do not let anyone tell you that your perception of the economy is wrong. If your bill at the grocery store has doubled, that is a fact. If your rent is taking 50% of your income, that is a fact. If you are afraid to open your 401k statement because you know the gains are being eaten away by the devaluation of the currency, that is a valid fear. The $1 trillion trade surplus China has with the world is a signal. It is a signal that the global economic order is shifting, and the United States is currently on the losing end of the wealth transfer equation. Tariffs are not a magic wand. They are a tool, and like any tool, if they are used incorrectly, they can cause massive damage to the user. Right now, that damage is being inflicted on you. So what can you do? You cannot control Washington. You cannot control Beijing. But you can control your own household economy. This is the time for resilience. This is the time to get lean. Do not bank on the promise that prosperity is just around the corner in 2026. Prepare for a winter that might last longer than the politicians are willing to admit. Pay down your high-interest debt, because, in a silent depression, cash flow is king. Be skeptical of the official numbers. When they say inflation is 3%, but your life costs 20% more, trust your life, not the spreadsheet. And, most importantly, do not suffer in silence. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your community, because the more we realize that we are all in this same boat, the harder it becomes for them to gaslight us. The silent depression ends when we refuse to be silent about it anymore. Do you feel like the government is protecting big corporations while passing the bill to you? Tell me your grocery bill reality in the comments below. I read every single one of them. And if you want to know specifically how this economic shift is going to impact your retirement savings, and the one lie about inflation that could wipe out your nest egg by 2026, you need to watch this video next. I will break down the data that Wall Street is praying you never see. Stay safe, stay informed, and I will see you there.